It's 6 o'clock. We're going to bring the meeting to order. There are no citizens to be heard. Without objection, we will dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. There being no objections, brings us to item number 4, council comments. Without objection, we'll dispense with the council comments. Brings us to item 5.1, presentation discussion, receipt of the effective and rollback calculations. Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm going to be referring to a separate handout. It's got a staff summary sheet. It's labeled Agenda Item 5.1 on it. And it's got all 3 attachments associated with that. So in that packet, you have a tax analysis worksheet. You have an effective and rollback calculation worksheet, which I'll just review a couple points, and then the certified tax summary, which I'll point out a couple things as well. So if I could have you go to the 3rd attachment real quick. This is the certified totals. Okay, so on page, will be labeled 277 out of 1,003. And what that is your certified total city of Chapel Park grand total piece there. And the only thing I was going to point out there is on the about midway down on the right-hand corner is the net taxable. The net taxable values now in Chapel Park is basically $1,170 million. Okay, so I refer to that later on when we talk about that. You can turn to the next slide. We don't have a lot of people in the audience, but maybe those that are filmed can see. But that figure represents $600 million increase from last year's certified totals, or a 6% value. Okay, so
66 million.
66 million.
66 million.
Yeah, not 600 million.
I'm like, wait a minute.
If you'll flip a couple pages to page 281 of 1003, that's really a summary of your different types of properties and your certified values. And the only thing I was going to point out there is you have 1,318 residents now, residential properties, single family, and that's an increase of 26 over last year's roll. And we don't keep track of every single one. This is the tax assessor that does the appraiser that does that. But that's the only 2 things I was going to point out on that. They obviously use that certified values to go to the worksheet. So if we go to the worksheet next, which is pretty close up there, it looks like this. It's got some gray lines and rows across it. I'm only going to point out a couple things. If you go to page 3 of that, it's not numbered. Apologize for that. At the top of the page, you'll see a 2017 value. That's the one I'm looking at. But I wanted to point out line 18. So if you find line 18, that is the 2017 tax ceilings. And that figure is 300 million and change. And that is an increase of your tax, that's your over 65 tax freeze. And that is a 9.8% increase over the 2016 freeze adjustable value. That value also compared to the total taxable value is 25.6% of all net tax values in Chapel Park. Okay, so I don't have the specific percentage of residential properties, but we know commercial properties is about 1/7 of your total value. And so that's a pretty good chunk of our residents, which are tax frozen. And that's all I wanted to say there. I will tell you that there were 44,702,000 and change taxable new values. In other words, new was it wasn't on the assessor's roll last year, and that could be renovations, but it's mostly new commercial and residential properties. So that's new value, and that is under line number 21. And all that adds up to 24. I'm not going to go over how they calculate the effective tax rate, but you can see the effective tax rate is a 0.2915 and some change that's over our current tax rate. If you flip a couple pages to where 29 is at the top, block number 29, row number 29 is at the top. That's where they start getting in, and actually it's actually row 32, they start to get the total 2017 debt paid with property taxes and additional sales tax revenue, etc. And I'm just going to point out that item 32B, subtract unencumbered fund balance used for the total debt, we provided a figure of $60,000 to them, and they calculated that in. And there's more discussion on that in the charts that we have that. And then the last thing is row 37, which is the most important value there, which is the total taxable value. So you're going to see that that figure 862 million and some change that goes on the worksheet. So if we flip to the next chart, this is your first attachment right at the summary sheet. This is the analysis of the tax rates. It looks like an Excel, a spreadsheet. It looks like this. And it starts off with, it's got some columns.
It's at the beginning of,
16, 17.
yeah, it's at the beginning of the handout.
It's at the very beginning of the end, it's the third page. This is part of your, it's in the budget, but I just kind of want to highlight a couple things here because it directly relates to these worksheets and how everything got calculated. So the first column is really a description of what we're doing. The second column with numbers in it, or the first column with numbers, the second column is the 2016-17 assessment. And then you've got four other columns that talk 17-18. So the current rate, the rollback rate, the effective rate, and the city manager proposed rate. And so I'll just kind of say, if you look at the read ahead, the city manager proposed tax rate is in fact the same as the current rate. So we'll go through this. Just again, you can. I'm only going over this so you can refer back to it later on if you might have some questions. Yes, ma'am.
Can I have a question now? The tax levy available to general fund shows 2.862358 and then 3,058,592, but when I wrote it down, it was a different number before. Is that? It was 2,937,156.
That's after reviewing it this morning or something?
Yes.
Yes, so there was a correction to this that we made, and this is an updated version of it.
Okay.
Okay, so what you have is last year, this at the first column of numbers, the 2016-17 assessment, 819 million, that was the assessed value that we used for taxes last year. Okay. The assessed value, which was at line 37 I just showed you this year, is 862 million. And that's a change from what we had last night and we have today. So that's a change. And that's because this is an updated correct column. We're using the correct number here. So it's an administrative change. Bottom line is that last year's 819 million resulted in a tax levy available to the general fund of 2.8 million approximately. If you look at the far right column, the city manager proposed rate, taking a look at the total tax assessed value of 862 million, and you add in the freeze value, and you get a total tax rate of available of 3.3. 3.2, you subtract out the INS, and the bottom line is that the tax levy available to the general fund is a little more than $3 million. That represents a $196,000 increase from last year's budget. So that $196,000 is what you're going to see on page really 2 of the budget, where it says this budget will raise $196,000 more this year than last year.
Because it said 75,000 and now it's 200,000 approximately. So somehow we lost 125,000, or we found it.
No, I used the wrong line when I was typing in there.
Okay. That's a big jump.
It was a fairly
We
big
gotta
jump.
go back and review, like,
Okay.
So during review today, we identified that and made the correction. Okay, so, that, you'll see that 196, and I'll come back to 196. Next slide. This is the bottom part of this, this worksheet. It's really a different component. This really is our illustration of the rate effects on an average homestead value. So first thing you'll see is that last year's assessed value, the average homestead of all the homesteads was $644,000. This year it's $659,000, which represents a $15,366 increase. And so again, what I would just tell you is that our newest homes, especially built in Huntington, we're significantly raising the assessed amount of residential properties, and then they average it by the number of homes, and to a degree, that's where a large amount of this increase is. My assessment is the average homeowner is not going to get a $44 increase, but this table shows if you apply the tax rate to the average from this year versus last year, then the difference is $44. And so that tax amount of 44 is really on the average taxable homestead value by maintaining the current rate. If that makes sense.
Which is not the median, but the
It's not the
average.
median. It's not the median.
Yeah, and of course, this $44 number does not reflect any of the seniors because they have a tax freeze and their numbers are frozen as long as we keep the same tax rate.
It is, I think that we use it as a metric because, you can compare from year to year, you can kind of see is the median price going up or is it going down?
And
In this case, it's going up.
this is what they provide us, and it used to be in one of the publications. I don't think it still is, but
Right.
that's provided by the tax office because it's required in the publications. They used to have it.
One question.
Mike?
Excuse me. Is 98.83% collection what we expect, or I would think it's up around at least 0.5% more, but
The tax office provides that number based on calculations.
what's our experience though? Because we can change that, I know.
It is, I can tell you that number has changed. And I can't remember what it was last year. I can find out.
99.37.
That's what I thought. That's 0.5% more.
I guess when they do the calculation, they're based off of when July, the end of July, who's paid. We got a huge amount in July, so.
Yeah, last year was 99.
Okay, did y'all generate this page that we're looking at? Or,
This page was taken from data and or generated, yes.
okay.
Which page?
What would 99.3 end up looking like on that? I know you don't expect an answer right now, but I'd like to see that. If that's what we really do, then it looks like we're sandbagging a little bit.
Is this us sandbagging or is this the bad people, Bear County Appraisal District, or this is their number or this is our number?
It's their number, the 99, the 98.83 is their number, and they use it based upon the average collections that they get. So if they get most of their collections in, as Laura says, for some month, and then they raise that for us.
So that's a good question though. So what was the original number last year? Was it obviously went up to 99, whatever. Was it 99.3? Was it less than that and then they changed it once the collections came in the second half of the year? Do we know?
I don't know.
That
And
was-
we haven't collected everything from last year.
Well, I know, you know what I'm saying though. I mean,
No, that would have been, when the same report from last year, it was 99.37. Then this is the new, now they're saying
Right.
next year, so it's always what they're projecting.
okay.
But are you
Okay,
not
and
asking?
Mike, you had asked 99.13?
No, 99.34 or 3.
No, I was asking Mike what his percentage, he did not use the same percentage. He said, I thought you said 99.13.
No, I said, we don't have to use that percentage.
But you gave us a percentage, and that was what I was asking you. What was,
I don't know. I think I said that I expected it to be about 0.5% higher than the 98.
And then they confirmed what that number was, which was
Okay.
99.3.
if it goes up 0.3%, it goes up, the collection number goes up by about $8,000.
Okay.
It's, yeah. So that if it went up by 0.5%, it would be $16,000.
Okay, thank you.
I'll confirm that for you in just a
I
second.
love people who can do numbers, I can't.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I just wanted to kind of go over that. That's all we had here. There's a lot more information in here. I don't think you want me to hash it out in great detail. Some of these numbers, we don't know how they get it, but we have backup material to it. Laura did ask for all the supporting material. It's difficult to go through that. So to your questions, that's the summary of the rates, the rollback and the effective rate.
Okay. If it was, Mike, if it was 99.33, which is 0.5%, then the amount would increase by $15,474.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Before we go to the next item, does anybody have any more questions on this? Okay, if nobody has any comments or questions, we'll proceed to item 5.2, presentation, discussion, submission of the city manager's proposed budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. Bill?
So Laura's passed out to you a big budget, and it's got little yellow tabs, and when you get home or later on, or you can do it during the meeting, you can separate those tabs and you can put it in the book based upon the corresponding tabs that were provided to you when we initially gave you the initial book. So that's just one thing. There's also not part of the budget, but a supporting document that looks about 1/4 inch deep thick. And this is what we use a lot to do the trend analysis associated with a 5-year plan. So this really gives you 3 years of historical data, actual data spent and expenses. Then it gives you the current budget and the year-to-date spent. And then it compares that to the 5th year, which is the current budget. And then you can see there's comments, there's a column on there on the side. That's where we make notes and we do those kinds of things. So this is really, I'm not going to go over this today. This was background information that as you go through the budget, you can compare it in more detail. Yes.
Once again, knowing that I'm not real good with numbers, on the first line it says, on ad valorem taxes current, it says year-to-date actual 2,907,000 and projected year-end 2,897,000.
So I literally just posted the July information that came by fax
Okay.
this morning, and that's what we've now
Okay.
collected. And part of that, and so I'm gonna kind of just real quickly, so go back to this page here. The total taxable assessed value that you see on that top row, that doesn't include properties that are in protest. So if you go back later on, if you have time and you go through this, the worksheets, you'll see what the actual ending taxable value is, and it's 870,
It wasn't that bad.
828.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it changes. So part of the increase that you're seeing there is because we have to use the number for the calculation. However, there is more that's collected because those ones that are in protest come out of protest and pay back taxes. Also, there was some of that property that was the rollback that is in current year. So when we had the rollback, the tax, not a different rollback for the ag exemptions. So a portion of current year, their taxes also went up from current year. So the twofold of why we're over.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we collected about $50,000, $60,000 in rollback taxes for property that was changed from agricultural use to commercial or whatever, and that we kind of had a windfall in
Prior
the,
years.
we had a prior year's collection from the rollback taxes, and so
So that was-
that's also reflected in
that
that
would've been delinquent.
$2.9 million number as opposed to the 2.8, just short of $2.9 million number.
But we didn't adjust the current ad valorem tax at that budget amendment, we only adjusted the delinquent. So a piece of that that you're talking about is in that number.
Is in the 2.9, yes.
Yes.
Bill?
Okay, so
Good question.
I'm not going to refer to this during the break when we go to the budget. You can always crosswalk that if you want, and it's a resource you have. Okay, first slide, please. Okay, so the bottom line is this budget proposes the city council adopt the 2017 FY17-18 budget at the rate of 0.287742 per $100 of valuation, and that represents no change from last year. And there's the chart that basically shows you that chart's in the budget, but I want to just up front lay that out. Next slide. Okay, on page, it's really the second page of your budget. This is the mandatory statement. It says this budget will raise more property taxes than last year's budget by $196,234, or 6.8% in that amount. And of that amount, $128,628 is tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll this year. So that's the required statement, and we got that 196 from that spreadsheet you just were reviewing earlier. And then what you do to get the 128 is you take the $44 million worth of new tax rolls and you multiply it by you divide it by 100, multiply it by the tax rate, you get $128,000. Any questions on that? Okay. Next slide. We're going to go to revenues. Revenues can be found starting starting on page 44 of your budget. So I recommend you go to page 44. Okay. So again, we've kind of briefly touched on ad valorem taxes. This budget, again, selected would be a budget of $3,058,000 and some change, which represents a $196,000 increase. And you see that's on the first line. I'm not going to go over every single line, but I'll just highlight a few. We did drop delinquent ad valorem taxes by $50,000, and so our selected budget has $20,000. Because if you look at the 5-year history associated with that, you're really generally at 25,000. It's last year was not normal. This budget includes a projected sales tax of $460,000, and that is an increase of $60,000 over what we had budgeted originally last year. In the last budget amendment, where we addressed the backhoe, we amended that amount based upon the projected sales tax to $422,000. This budget raises it to $460,000, which really represents about $20,000 more than what we project. So, not on the budget that we're looking at right now on page 44, but if you look at the 5-year sheet, each one of these lines has a projected year end. And Laura and I updated those into the best detail that we can, based upon what we think our projections are going to be. So that sales tax is $20,000 projected more than what we think we're going to get this year. Moving down to permits and license. Projected, we think we're going to pull in about 420,000. I think that's what that was. 430,000 this year. But for next year, we've got 425 as the budget. I mean, if you take a look at the 5-year projection, this year was just through the roof, literally. Roof permits and construction, etc. So it's still going pretty strong, and there's still a lot of single residents that are being developed. There's on the books, there's the starting of Imperial Park. The Two Brothers Barbecue didn't get started, but there's still construction that's going on with the nursing home and some permits that are going to come from there. So I'm optimistic. I wouldn't be surprised if it drops a little bit, but we've always, you know, tried to project, and then we tend to be, you know, project a little bit under. So I purposely left this projected building permits at about the same level we think we're going to collect this year. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it drops a little bit, but I kind of kept it because I've been surprised where it's exceeded before. So that's where that is. Probably one of the biggest surprises is EMS fees. Our projected EMS fees this year at the end is going to be $110,000, which was an increase over our projected budget of 75. So we're projecting next year 110,000 in EMS fees as well. That's a $35,000 increase. So that's a pretty good number. You can see we're already at 98,000 collected this year. If you go to the next page, you'll see that there's not a lot of significance in the top part of the rest of the miscellaneous revenues. The significance really is your transfers in. Each one of these will be discussed or are covered later in the budget, since we're talking revenue piece, which is pretty important. It's kind of highlighted. The first one is a transfer from water. That's $22,050. That's an annual transfer. It's the same amount every year. It represents the portion of the staff that funds, that works on the water. You know, Laura, myself.
It's an administrative allocation.
Administrative allocation.
Okay.
From the water fund to the general fund. The crime control, and again, most of these will be, well, all of this will be discussed in more detail later on into the police and into crime control. But you have a series of transfers in for crime control, and we just put some basic categories. I'll go over more detail later on. Vehicle and the outfits, fitting of the 2 vehicles, 120,000. Various police equipment, almost 41,000. Salaries that cover the gap between 80 and 84-hour week, 45,000, and various fire, law enforcement equipment adds up to 6,600. Then there's a court, and then there is a body-worn camera transferred in, and then you. Actually, it wasn't. Yeah, that's right. It's not here. That's covered in your various PD equipment. That was last year we did that, so that's why it shows up as a separate entry. This year we're not doing it. You do have a transfer in a capital replacement, and so each of these items have been saved. That money has been saved in capital replacement, and there is a corresponding expense in the appropriate or in the fund. It could be either admin, police, not police, admin, fire, or public works. You'll see that there is a $25,000 figure transferred in for engineer fees, and that is anticipating that we get the engineer drainage study, and they come up with a prioritized list, and then we are going to move forward on the engineering study that are drainage improvements, that we would then be paying our engineer some of those, these kinds of fees to develop the details. We did not put as a placeholder $1 million drainage project yet. I figured they would be coming back to the council, and once we get the plan, we can come up with specific numbers and then we would amend the budget. Now, if we get a idea before the September budget from KFW, or if we want to put a more generic placeholder for the budget, and that's something we can talk about in workshops and we can do. And then finally, the last entry there is the fund balance transfer in from reserve. So I'm kind of skipping ahead, but we have fully funded the capital replacement fund. You'll see that. And then as a result of that, we were able to fund it mostly from current revenues, but this budget proposes to transfer almost 75,000 in from fund balance for capital replacement. And we can talk about that later if we get to that. Any questions on revenues?
Okay, Bill, you're projecting a 3.5% increase is what this ultimately comes down to year over year, which means that because our revenues match our disbursements, that you're really saying it costs 3.5% more roughly to run the city in the next fiscal year than it costs this year.
If you're looking at what our current budget amendment is, we are currently projecting revenues and expenses this year of 5.3 million, and this is a 5.5 million and some change. I mean, there's some differences there.
Yeah.
And again, there was a lot of budget, there were several budget amendments, I think were 5 or 6. So the original budget was more, last year, more like about 5 million, just a little over 5 million. So this represents about a 10% change from the adopted budget last year, but a 3% change, or I didn't do the numbers, but if you've done the numbers over what our current budget is. Okay. Then we're going to move to the next page, which is page 46. Oh, no, I want to go back. Go ahead. Go to 42, go back to 42. I meant to change the order of this in the briefing, but I've just gone, 42 is a summary slide of all your, basically your revenues, and then by department, the expenses. That you can see that the revenues and the expenses in the end match, and with the addition of almost 75,000 in transfer from fund balance. So that's how that works. So what I wanted to just kind of show you from the top is you have at the top left, basically, beginning with the 2016-17 amended budget, we have a beginning fund balance of 2.4 million and some change. Okay, so if you take in revenue minus expenses, at the end of that first column, you're going to see that by the budget, you're going to have an ending fund balance of $2.4 million. So then you take that number, you move it to the top column of the city manager proposed budget. You take the 2.4 million, you add the revenues of 5.4 million, you deduct the expenses, and then you see you have the $75,000 fund balance, which leaves you a fund balance of $2.36 million based upon the budget. Now going to the next page, what we've done is we've taken a look at the year-end projections. Because the year-end projection actually has income of over 200,000 projected year-end revenue over expenditures, savings in fuel costs, additions to the ad valorem taxes, etc. The fund balance updated, not based upon the budget, but what we project to be, is 2.6 million and some change. And then if you say, okay, where does that leave you at the beginning of the budget cycle based upon the percentage of your fund balance? It's approximately 48%. So that 2.6 million is going to be approximately 48% of fund balance. The fund balance will be a budget, so to speak. So this gives you a bottom line. We talked about one of our goals was to maintain up to 50%, not to exceed 50%. At the end of this budget year, we will be at approximately 48 coming into the city manager's proposed budget, if that makes sense. And that's a good number to have. It's better than a significantly declining fund balance where you're going to get your bottom. Okay. Okay, yes. Alderman Simpson.
Well, if that's the case, then that 75,000 or 74,969 doesn't look like a good number. If we're expecting the fund balance to go up, then, and we're saying that we've got a $75,000 loss.
The 75,000 is just next year's budget. This figure here is at the end of this year with the anticipated $200,000 that you're going to get collected this year. It has nothing to do with next year's budget. It's collected this year.
Well, it does, because that's where it starts out, beginning fund balance. So it does have something to do with
You
this.
mean on the previous slide?
42, yeah, page 42.
Right, because we just showed, Laura can probably help me explain this. It's two different things. This is the budget based upon budget, and we're not using our projected in this budget. This is just for illustration
Slide
purposes.
12, page 42, the first column is the actual amended budget as it stands.
Right.
But when you go over to page 43, we use the fund balance projected, which is 157,421 additional revenue.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Now,
And
you
then
take the 75,000.
44,329 is less, expenses are going down to 44,329.
So Alderman Simpson, you're right.
This is about
The
200.
75,000 hasn't been deducted from here. This is at the start of the budget year. So if you were to project what it's going to be at the end of this next budget year, it would be this 2.6 million minus. I'm only showing you what we're starting at the beginning of the year, and then it's not audited. So when the audit books come, they're going to come in December and tell you, okay, your real fund balance is this. And then the budget will take that money, whatever that figure is, and there would be 75,000 projected to be deducted from that, which would be at the end of FY18.
Okay. Yeah, now you've confused me, because I'm looking at page 42 and it says the ending projected fund balance is 1.438. And now I'm looking up there and you say that the ending projected, or the ending
Page
projected
42
fund
is
balance.
not projected. Page 42 is actual budget, and then your current budget as it stands.
Okay, and you're saying that the real number is, go back up to,
Page
go back,
43, yeah.
is 2.64.
Yes.
Okay, so
That's
two,
beginning. So when you do this calculation of figuring out how many days, if you go to, like, some cities use 90 days, they don't have 90 days of fund balance, you use your ending fund balance, and you use that as your, you don't, excuse me. Yes, we're gonna take 74 out, but you don't include that in that.
okay, so if I take that number, the 2.69, and I divide it by the amended budget number of 5.328, that's 49.53%.
That's
Which
what
is-
it is, but this is not based on that, this is for the new year. I mean, that may be correct, but that's.
No, I'm saying that the year-end fund balance, we stayed under the 50% is what I think you just told me. Is that correct? 2.639 divided by the 5.328 is 49.53%. So we're under the 50%, which was our goal. And now the next thing we're talking about is, well, what are we doing for 2017, 2018? And are we still going to be under our 50%? And I'm looking at your numbers here, and you're projecting that our fund balance is going to slip. Is that correct? To 2.363? I'm looking at page 42. Right?
You need to add, no. Remember, that number is not using projections.
It's just
That number is not projections, so you're gonna need to add the
Yeah.
100, almost 200,000.
Okay, so it's now becomes 2.563?
be 2.639.
And that's 46 points.
Into this budget year,
Okay.
take the 75,000 out, that would be, so it's gonna be somewhere.
It's still 46.5%, so it actually fell from
Yeah.
almost 50% to 46.5%,
It's under 50.
which is which is more under 50%. Okay.
Okay. Now if you'll go to page 46, which is the council. And really, what I'm gonna do now is kind of just pretty much go over the major items of each department and each budget breakout. And so, for council, and you can ask me any questions if you want on the specific numbers, but there's really no changes to the day-to-day operations. And so what we did do was we projected the funding and replacement of 2 iPads if required. I mean, you're at your 3-year mark. They seem to be doing okay, but we've got it budgeted in case we need it. We're not intending to purchase 2 new ones unless they break. But in order to be able to do it very rapidly, if there is an issue, we want to have it budgeted. So
Curtis does a really great job at charging mine, but it doesn't charge at my house, so,
Why?
or at my office. You have to use a factory cord only. If
Yeah.
no, on mine you do. If I don't use a factory cord, I can't charge mine.
I have a clone on this one.
Oh, I know. I thought I could too. But you have to use a factory
Well,
cord.
don't you have a factory cord?
Yeah, but not at my office.
Is it rated for an iPod?
So Mayor, the actual budget items are on page 47. But there's no significant change. If you have any questions on that, let me know.
So instead of replacing the 2 iPads, you could just buy them another factory cord.
Curtis can do that out of his budget.
Okay.
Okay. Moving to page 49, administrative budget. Not a whole lot on here, but there are a couple things I want to highlight. Firewall upgrade, we're required to do that. Curtis can talk about that if you want, but we have a firewall, we need to upgrade it, we need to add more ports to it, and that will facilitate separating the SCADA from public works and some other things that are going on. We also have budgeted the replacement of 2 iPads if required, and a placeholder for a computer monitor if required. And because of the way we've written our purchasing policy, capital goods need to be authorized by council, et cetera, and they need to be funded. And when you have things that break and you don't have that funded and you really need it, you'll see that we have several low-cost line items in there, which are we're able to purchase if we need to. So we don't have any scheduled computer or monitors for that line item, but we have that as a backup.
Okay. Question before we go on, and we're talking about iPads. If everybody could turn their iPads into Curtis, get them swept, make sure that we don't have viruses. You know, if this is a time to consider getting all of the council members new iPads, other than the mayor. If y'all have, you know, we all go on the internet at times to retrieve stuff for the city, and if there are things that have popped in there, it's better to get y'all iPads that are clean as opposed to hand-me-downs from everybody that's gone before you. And so I'd like to see Curtis review our iPads and just make sure that they're all in working condition.
So no one's ever had mine but me, so I'm okay.
Yeah, well, it's also old, and so,
Mayor, if you all want to do
Say
say
like
pass
that.
it to Curtis, we'll come here and be glad to take it.
okay.
The 80-25 line item there, also placeholder for an office chair or some furniture because we might need one. The line's about to fall apart. I don't have plans to replace it, but I want to have a line item there. The same thing with the 2 AC units. This year we put 2 AC units for City Hall on the budget. We actually have, this is a transfer in for capital replacement, so it's not coming from current revenues. We did replace one, we repaired another one. And so again, it gives us the ability, and we've got one that's probably on the brink right now. But budget provides for that, and you'll see later on we have one for fire as well. A new item, we talked about it before, I budgeted $16,000 for electronic marquee. Again, I'm proposing that in the budget. What I would do, if council, I'm assuming we're going to have an opportunity to discuss this during our workshops, and then we'll either get guidance from council to strike it or proceed with it. And then at some point in time, after the budget passed, we would go out and get bids for that and bring it back to council for approval. So again, we talked about this several times, and we'll go whatever council wants to do. Any questions on the admin budget? There's nothing really other significant. There's nothing in court I want to highlight. Next slide here, we're going to go to public works, which is page 59 of your budget.
And Mike, just a reminder, I think you were on council when we adjusted the compensation of our prosecutor and so on and so forth, so.
Thank you.
Under Public Works last year, under Professional Services Engineering, we had a line item for $50,000, and that was to pay for the drainage study. So that will be completed. This is a placeholder for engineering support work in the design and the requirements documents for actually doing the engineering project itself, and the drainage projects. There's $5,000 for tree services and municipal property. That's a decrease by $5,000 from last year. We've maintained the landscaping budget for City Hall. We've maintained the janitorial services. We've added City Hall carpet and tile cleaning. We intend to do that once this year coming up. We reduced the overall maintenance, building maintenance fee for the Public Works building. It's got a new building. Part of that was the septic that he had approved last year, so we don't have those requirements this year, so we don't anticipate a significant requirement for building maintenance. Sign maintenance also significantly reduced. You recall that we had budgeted the replacement of the Shallow Creek street signs, and so we reduced the amount required for signage in this year's budget.
How much did we do as far as replacing the signs around the city?
We have the current, here, let's see. What's the current?
It's 3,000.
Well, we haven't, I don't think we've done any major replacement other than Shallow Creek. So
Correct, that was only Shallow Creek, it's just, the rest of it's just for maintenance,
General maintenance.
sign can come down.
We have,
I'm gonna slowly start replacing the fuel because I did a reflectivity test on mine while I was here, and I'm just gonna start hitting the fuel with the one we have each year, just start working all around the city.
So year to date, we've spent $2,338 for signage. That does not include the Shallow Creek. So as we put this budget together, I sent Shallow Creek Homeowners Association a little reminder that to send us the invoice, which they did. And so we actually got a pretty good deal on it for about $5,000. We got the signs, and so we had budgeted $9,000. And so we had budgeted quite a bit more based upon a bid that I had, and then when we actually went out for bids, we got it significantly cheaper. So that summarizes that. On-capital computer is a new current for Peggy, and then placeholder of $400 for other for a monitor here that goes out. Non-maintenance equipment, scaffolding, which Brandon briefed you before earlier, which will assist us in putting up our banners here and doing various other things where we've had to rent lifts before. We won't have to do that. This also includes a new zero-turn mower. That mower has been in capital replacement funds, and so it'll be a transfer in of $12,500 purchase this as you move forward. So there were several other items that Brendan had talked to you about possibly getting, but we did not include it in the budget. The Public Works truck, the excavator, what else was there? There was some other-
Or, I mean, stuff to hold the.
The bins, the cement bins,
Yeah.
Bins, yeah, the cement.
$8,000.
That's not in here.
So, again, incrementally trying to make improvements, but that didn't make that good.
Okay, y'all talked about something that was going to help us with road maintenance to where the guys could work out there, and what did we do with that?
Correction machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we did with that is we put it on the capital replacement schedule as a future item. And you're gonna see when we get to that, that we partially funded it this year, targeting the purchase of that next year. Now, that could be something in the budget workshop that we could say, let's take it out of fund balance, and purchase it this year. But, we didn't include that. We planned for it to be a FY19 purchase. And so we have a incremental savings and capital replacement this year with the remainder coming next year for the purchase of debt.
Okay, Michelle?
And we already have a crack seal machine now, it just isn't functioning as effectively as a new one.
What you have now is a barrel. You have a portable thing you stick in a barrel of tar, and it works. And so what Brandon's talking about is a
Sorry.
Well, we just bought it, it's not like it's that
Oh,
old.
you're thinking,
What am I thinking of?
that is.
The roller, you're thinking of the roller, I think.
Roller and then the,
That's on.
seal coat machine, you're thinking seal
Seal
coat.
machine was bought in 2009.
Yeah, seal coat.
So
Okay, I thought we bought something in the last few years.
Roller.
Okay,
rollers last year.
okay.
So-
Yeah, you know, some of this equipment is a force multiplier to where we don't have to have as many employees. And the big cost in our budget is employees. To the extent that we can use equipment as opposed to having multiple men on a job, you know,
Yeah.
it saves us money at the end of the day.
In this case, crack sealing is based upon the quality of our roads. It's a almost continuous task, and we're always behind that.
Mhm.
So yeah, this would be a great efficiency saver. Brandon and I have been talking about focusing more on crack sealing, doing that in-house, and doing the seal coat contract external.
Oh,
So again, this is just part of his continuing assessment and things that we're working on to go further. So certainly something to look at if we want to in the workshops. And actually, Brandon had one of these crack seal machines brought out here today for demonstration. I didn't see it. He did. And he is looking at costs associated with that based upon the size. So if you'd like, we can bring dollar figure, Brandon, 57,000.
We have 60 in the capital replacement fund as the line. For future.
Can I ask one question, another question? Under services, professional services, we don't have anything for painting. Shouldn't we have an, no, the buildings.
Yeah, I know.
Shouldn't we have an annual budget? Because like I'm looking at the wall back there, it's got stuff on it. Shouldn't we be, do we not need to be painting buildings? Fire.
There should be like an eggshell coat that's on this one, or you just take like it's like a dry erase marker almost.
So you need to tell the janitorial services to do that? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but I would like to make sure that I know we painted this building this year, but do we not need to have an ongoing painting budget for all of our buildings, for public works and the fire and everybody, you know?
There is building maintenance.
It's just general, okay.
So, but my assessment is that we don't have a great need for painting this year. So, I mean, under building maintenance, we could put a subline under this as painting if we need to.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there's money in
In
there.
small jobs, we could probably take out building maintenance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll get back to you on the correctional machine. We'll give you some options at the workshop, and we'll talk about that. I mean, that is something that would be a lot more efficient than effective. And really, sealing your cracks in the asphalt really is going to extend the life of your streets.
But that really isn't going to
Would
reduce.
this, if we had this crack seal machine, would this have eliminated the little problem we had in Shadow Creek yesterday?
I can't answer that, maybe Brandon can. Would you come to the mic, Brandon?
Yes, sir. More than likely, that would have eliminated the nasty globs that were actually out there. They got tracked around with the tires on the vehicles. This one actually has like a nozzle that has a squeegee that as it comes out, it gets put directly into the crack, and you can actually stop it, so there's only a little bit dripping. Versus right now, when you shut it off, you've got the full wand that's still emptying out product on the ground.
And I'm assuming it's much faster than what we do now?
Yes, and then the hose is actually on like a boom that swings like within 30 feet of the trailer around it, so you can reach from curb to curb. And as you go, you're really filling it in, you're squeegeeing at the same time, and the guy drives the truck. So it's a lot faster, smoother operation.
One of the big advantages is that it's got a heating element and a self-contained, I'm going to say tar, but that's the wrong stuff, tar barrel. So it heats it as it goes out and it's contained, and you don't, what you currently have now is when you open up a barrel and you use it because you've got this, it's kind of a pump that goes in it, sits on top of it. It dries out inside your equipment and they've got to maintain it.
It's a coal tar product, so you have to do a lot more as far as maintenance cleaning wise. But at the end of the day, with this machine, it actually has a heating element that's in the hose itself. At the end of the day, you just empty it out. The next morning when you fire it up, it heats that hose automatically and empties the liquid back into the burner, so or into the trailer tank. So it's a lot more efficient as far as maintenance. You can fire it up and you're off and going, melting blocks in 30 minutes. That's typically going to take the time for you guys to get their suits on, their old shoes and stuff like that, and get signs put up, and you're ready to go already.
Thank you.
By the way, before you just mentioned shoes, and I know that it's later on, are we providing y'all shoes more rapidly than we used to?
The guys get $200 a year towards boots. If they want to take $100 and go get a pair of boots, and then later use another $100 later, that's fine. I just tell them you get $200 a year towards boots.
Okay, you know, we've had guys that looked like they were almost barefoot out there before looking at their shoes, and you know, it's an allowance. We want them to have the right kind of shoes, and we want them to have the protection.
Correct. Yes, sir. I tell them, hey, you got your boots last year, July. Okay, here's your $200. Do you want all of it now? Do you want it later? And they come and say, well, I want Red Wings, or I want to just go to Academy and give me $50, $75 pair of shoes, and get another $130 pair. Okay, they take their $30 pair and use them for crack sealing and keep the others for doing other jobs. So that way, but I make sure that they're fit to their feet. They're happy with them. They can
Okay,
try them on.
as long as we're replacing them more rapidly than we used to.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions on Public Works? Next slide. And I'm going to refer to page 63 in the budget, which really is your capital outlay. Again, operating costs are pretty much the same with the, you know, additions of personnel and stuff like that. So, in the fire department's capital requirements, we have the last 3 mobile data terminals. They're about $3,300 each, or you know, $10,000. We have $10,200 budgeted for that. 2 desktop computers, vehicle dash camera and a body worn camera. Both the vehicle dash camera and the body worn camera are, correct me if I'm wrong, are funded from Crime Control Prevention District funds.
Yes. And they will be updated so that they'll match with all the new system that Lisa's now.
You said 10,200 for mobile data terminals, but it says $10,002. Is it?
3333.
Okay, so it's correct. Okay, just checking.
33334.
Decimals in there.
Yeah. Just didn't want to be off.
Then the next item is under the firearms taser program, adding a taser for the fire marshal under his fire. And it's also funded from Crime Control Prevention District funds under his law enforcement duties. Maintenance of equipment, chief's not here, I don't have that off the top of my head what that is. Ambulance replacement, again, we're gonna replace the second ambulance in the stretcher next year. Again, coming out of capital replacement funds. You have the replacement of the AC living quarters. Again, that is only if the current one breaks. We have it in the budget. Again, that's capital replacement funds. It's been funded, so it's not out of revenue, and we'll only use it if we need it. There's a number of items that the chief briefed earlier that he was looking to do. I took his top priority one, which was a cooling fan in the EMS bay for $5,000, and we funded that. So what was not funded was the emergency generators, the fire trainer, the portable fire trainer, and there may have been something else. But again, it's on our radar. Incrementally, we'll look at doing that in the future.
Now, we do still have portable generators. They're just old.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a backup generator for the Emergency Operations Center and then the Public Works Center. So one of the things that crossed our minds is Emergency Ops Centers. A lot of times you can get a grant from that. We haven't explored that, but maybe we can look at trying to compete for grant money.
We can talk about that next week.
So, on the list. Any other questions on the fire department? Next slide. Police department, I think you've been briefed on all this by Chief Lacey. Some of it is part of his assessment, the last few remaining things that came out of his initial assessment. Some of it's a continuing expense from the assessment, some of it's some new stuff. So he has two vehicle radars which are not in operation right now. And so there's two to replace existing ones. That's what that is. He briefed you earlier on the optic thermal unit and the handheld radars, one handheld thermal unit, the heavy-duty shredder, two printers, and crime scene cameras. The TASER's 5-year program, remember we took and extended the funding out 5 years, and so that's the portion of it required for that. And the capital equipment, 3 desktops and 1 MDT. The MDTs are his vehicle, and that's going to allow him to have access to better track where all these guys are, etc. 2 of the computers are really because of the upgrades to the body-worn cameras and the vehicle cameras, being able to be capable of downloading and with all the memory storage associated with that. One will be in the CID's office and one will be in the captain's office. One of those computers will be remissioned we have a admin space here for an intern, and that admin space doesn't have a computer, so instead of selling it for almost nothing, we're going to just have it as a backup, basically a backup computer. Various furniture, shelving, tables, and refrigerator. Some of that furniture is for the storage, the evidence storage room, which is actually being built as we speak now. It's almost complete. And shelving for that. I think there's some chairs. And then there's the finally the patrol car purchase of 2 cars. In here is the additional funding of 2 police officers. So you can see that that's a pretty significant jump in terms of paying benefits.
Where did you just jump to, Bill?
What's it?
Where did you jump to?
I'm still on the police department, but
He's just saying
I think it was pointed salaries.
Top
Yeah,
of
71.
Top of 70.
160,000, there's a line. About 11, right around 110.
111,000 difference.
Don't know.
half the police would be page 71.
And that's everybody's raises plus 2 officers.
Correct, Mayor. And healthcare.
It says salaries, it doesn't say benefits.
Health
The
insurance is
benefits
farther
is
down.
farther down.
It
Benefits
increased
are later.
26,000.
Yeah.
And again, the 26,000 is also related to 2 officers having
Right.
9 more months for both of them.
Yep.
It's only 3 months.
Yeah, so the current budget has 3 months of those 2 extra officers, so you're really picking up nine months in addition from what was on the current community budget.
Which is $9,000 of the increase. 500 basically a month times 2 times 9.
Any other questions on the police department? Next slide. Okay, so we'll go to water department, and that is on page 84. Just to highlight some of the capital outlays, Brandon's asked for a TV DVR capable of doing in-house training with the guys with the his public works building. So we've got that funded. There's a possibility that part of that might get donated, but you know, we have it funded here. He's asked for a replacement cap and drills for pipes and respirators and some miscellaneous equipment that adds up to $4,000. He's asked for a line locator tool, $5,000, which we funded. And in his assessment, the looping of Cliffside's 2-inch line and looping that and upgrading to a 6-inch would be a pretty significant quality increase in our water system. We haven't gone out for bids. We don't really truly know the cost. We've got a placeholder of $40,000 there to go up. But the water budget is tight, so we're very cognizant of that. And we'll try to be as cost effective as we can.
Are we going to have all the consents to go in and do the looping? Because part of that involves the use of personal property. Or do we have enough easements in place to be able to complete the looping?
There is one house that I need to talk to, the rest of it's alleys that will be affected.
Okay.
So but that one house has the blow off actually in its backyard. So hopefully there's not gonna be too much, it's literally finished cutting the other half of the yard down the property line to get to Cliffside, and that's it, because the blow off is already half in their yard.
Are we going to secure an easement for that additional pipe that's going in that's not in an alleyway that's not already under an easement?
If there's not already one on the property, yes, I would need to do that.
Okay. And there's adequate money in our attorney's fees, and we don't need to adjust for the water department on this? For legal fees?
I think we're covered on attorney fees. I mean, I'm not billing it, specifically to the water department. Generally speaking, I mean, having an easement would be good, it's not required to do this work. So, if I'm writing it down as something to investigate and get into how much of an easement do we need, what is required, etc. And is there alternatives? I haven't gone out there to see, are there alternatives to accomplishing the looping without, this person's property, or can you do the blowout somewhere else? I mean, maybe there's some other option, maybe there's not.
But if
Michelle?
we're using personal, or asking someone to allow us on their personal property to put in something for our water system, we need an easement.
We probably ought to. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
I mean, but to do the looping piece to this, we could do something similar to what we did with the Oak Quilt mitigation plan. We got the letters released from each property owner to go onto the property.
But this would be a permanent thing, so it should be
Agreed.
an easement.
Agreed. Again, I'm hearing for the first time that we might have. There's a good question, and we will contact the Cliffside resident ASAP to verify that he's cooperative associated with that. And if so, once we come up with the plan and easement for the long-term future, it obviously would make sense. I'm not disagreeing at all.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Item 2075, bank credit card fees, $4,000. But we adopted user pays rather than the city pays.
We still have the expense, we're covering it with a fee, when people use the credit card.
So it's a different line item.
Yeah, there's two.
Yeah, there's an income and a.
What kind of experience have you had since people have been charged a fee?
So in City Hall, the court, a few months before, we had already moved to that online service. And so that's actually been utilizing pretty heavily. Now that that service has been upgraded. On the permit side, we've seen a huge downturn on American Express. Imagine that. Matter of fact, they used to always have American Express statement. There was always activity, and several different months there's been maybe one charge. So Marissa's real good about telling people they're to charge. Probably, she said, after they should look like 85% of the time, they say, we'll bring a check for permits. So that use has gone down. Water, we don't have a lot of walk-ins. We still have some work. We have the online payments we've got to deal with a different way, and I haven't had time to finish that piece. But they walk in and make a payment with a credit card. They're charged a fee.
Okay.
But it has definitely made a huge difference on permit side.
Do you expect that, with the change in the American Express dropping out, we set the fee at 2.5%. Is 2.5% too high or too low?
We probably just need to look at another year. It hasn't been
Okay.
a full year yet, but it's probably still okay.
Okay.
Based on what I'm seeing, but again, we don't have a full year. It's still small.
And without getting into too much detail about the water fund, because we really get into great detail with WAC. I do want to just tell you that we took a lot of requirements from fund balance in the last couple of years for repainting of the elevated storage tank, the refurbishment of the Trinity well, and the SCADA system.
Yes.
And so at the same time, we've also been doing a good job of capturing the equipment replacement costs. Started with Lou and his spreadsheet, and Brandon's picked up on it, Laura keeps tight on that, and we've been funding future equipment replacement. And so what that does do, though, is it puts more and more money into equipment replacement, which is it's allocated, it's not restricted. I mean, it's in the same bank account, and it's just it's ledger notions that we keep on a spreadsheet. But at the end of this year, you're going to have essentially projected, unfunded, unrestricted at the end of this year, $426,000 in the water fund. And at the same time, you're going to have $448,000 in capital replacement. So almost $1 million total in this fund, of which half of it's been allocated towards equipment replacement, and it's scheduled, and we're saving it so we can go do that. There is in this budget, the $40,000 looping of the cliffside is coming from fund balance because current revenues don't account for that. At the same time, for the capital replacement fund, current revenues aren't keeping up with that. So there's $86,000 that's coming from there. That's not in this budget. I'm just giving you some background information. So you're having, what's happening is you're not getting the same amount of water revenues that you're getting over the years. And we've had these three big expenses that we've been able to pay for out of fund balance. We haven't had additional debt. But don't anticipate any huge, any significant 100,000, 200,000 repairs or expenses in the next year. But something could happen. We have a reserve for that if you needed it. I will tell you that the WAC, and again, the revenue piece I just mentioned it here it is on page
81.
85?
81.
Okay, 81. And so, what we did, we averaged the last 3 years. We took the average of the last 3 years of water usage and consumption revenue, and that's what we used for the budget. So previously, we had used it 4, or we used it 5, we used the projected current year, and we were always under projecting the revenues. Okay, so we think that we're going to be, so you can see that this selected amount is 609,000 some change. So that's going to be pretty close to what we think we're going to get projected year in this year. So you can see where we had under the last year's budget 670,000 projected income. We're not likely to meet that, although we've had some pretty dry months and the water sprinkler systems are going off. Even still, we're not projected to meet that 670,000. So just note to that.
Question. Bill. So is WAC looking at and water looking at a study of what's causing us to be down in our revenue? Obviously, it's because people aren't using it, but is it because people aren't using it because of weather conditions, or is it because of pricing? Do we need to review reducing the pricing in higher tiers to get people to use more water? Do we need people to be using more water? I mean, if that's what I always hear, people need to use more water, and in order to do that, then we need to review what would make them do that.
So I don't have the 5-year history here, but there were years that you brought in $900,000
Yes.
under the current rates.
True.
My personal, you're not going to get staff or the WAC to be able to do probably a detailed study that could come to a conclusion that would be based upon fact. I mean, we could come to some general conclusions based upon what we think.
Yes.
I personally have been thinking about this, talking to the WAC for a number of years, and Laura and Brandon, and walking, driving around there. I think that the general, regional, statewide, and regional conservation efforts, especially by state, is over effect. And there are people that just have said, I'm going to conserve water. It's not that important to me to have a green yard. And so if you take a look at your rates, and again, I will tell you this: the WAC has passed an action to consider what our requirements are in the future years, and then to compare that to what we think our revenues are, and if necessary, do a internal rate study associated with that, we can come up with recommendations. So they have realized that, hey, we have this decline in revenue. We have what can we expect at the plateau at? What are our expenses, and how can we address them? So,
Because that's an ongoing concern, and raising the rate is not going to help.
well, I don't have an opinion on that or any. There's been no factual stuff done on that. I do know that you are almost identical at the low end
To
what
solve.
Saul's does. And Saul's also heavily discounts their, the underprivileged, so that they don't use a lot of water to keep a low rate, because they make it up later on. They have a water usage fee on top of a water rate fee. So what happens is, by the time, once you get up to, and I don't know what the number is, they start charging you double for everything on all your usage. And your water usage fee actually exceeds the rate fee. So that's why I sent you my water bill, and I had a pretty high water bill this last month. And it was almost...
That's beyond the scope of our agenda
But
item.
it was significantly higher than what it would have been if it was Chevron Park. I don't think the rates are that high.
Yeah.
Just one last comment. If you look at the last 5 years, aside from last year when we finally got out of the drought, I mean, we were in a drought for 4 years, and I think I know for a fact, I've had residents and friends of mine in the city think that they have to comply with the SAWs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and many people do it because they feel like it's the right thing to do, as you mentioned, from a conservation standpoint, but I think it's also an education piece of it too, because I think many people just assume that what's implemented on the SAW side they need to follow in Shadow Park. So that may be something to pursue, just to educate them on that we don't have to follow that.
Yeah, no, it's just an
Sure.
ongoing concern because since I've been on council, revenues continue to drop, but expenses we know are gonna continue to go up. And so we've gotta figure out what the happy medium is, and obviously it's probably in the rate somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, going through this, and I'm sure it's in there someplace, I did not see the franchise fee transferred to the city funds out of the water department. Don't we charge a 3% franchise fee?
The 20,
The 22,000 is an expense reimbursement.
that's the same, it
That's the
just
same
hasn't
thing.
been changed.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
just-
so we
yeah,
just-
We just haven't
Yes.
changed the number in many, many, many years.
Okay, okay.
So again, the $40,000, I think that's something we really need to consider. So we budgeted for that cliffside. Other than that, there's no big expenses in this budget associated with that. And I think that once you determine what your requirement is, you put it out for bid, you see what comes on, there's a decision later on to go ahead and do this or not. But if you don't have it budgeted, you won't start the action, you won't develop a situation, and you won't know what your real options and requirements are.
We need to do that because it worked so much better on Wagon Trail or wherever it was we did it this last go around, and people are happier, and so we need to do it everywhere.
And that was really just going through, affected 3 properties. I mean, it was connecting the main, from where it dead ended at Wagon Trail, and then connecting to the main that was in Northwest Wilshire Highway. So that was pretty easy, done in-house for the most part. This one we may have to consider going out of house for part of this, especially trenching and stuff like that.
But everybody on the system should have the same quality of water. So,
Okay. Any questions on the water? Next. Capital Replacement Fund, that is page 97 on your budget. And I really just wanted to start out with just saying that this budget proposes a transfer in from the general fund, $324,596. And you see that on the kind of the lower right side of the page there. Okay, I've circled it in blue. At the same time, it's transferring out $210,000 into those program expenses like the ambulance and various things. So your net increase, so to speak, is $114,000 in your capital replacement fund. And I think we've covered all the specific transfers in actual expenditures as we want. You've got in your budget a capital replacement fund spreadsheet which talks about the different line items by category. We have this separated into each particular. I've always got a spreadsheet that's way too big that it can't be hard print it out. And the printed out copies are hidden columns after hidden columns, and it's amazing what the spreadsheet is that tracks it out. But this summarizes it, and there wasn't anything particular I was going to point out in terms of those sheets.
We did hand out, which is page 100 and 101, we did hand out in workshop an expanded version. So it's been updated a little bit since then, because that was as it stood. So,
Yeah, this 100 and 101 is the details of each individual, but it doesn't include all the out years and all the other problems that she's got in. It would be too complicated. Any questions on that? Capital improvement adjustment fund. Again, the budget fully funds it. That was one of the council objectives that was done during the workshop. So I think it's a wise thing to do for the out years. So support it. Next slide, what else is next? Debt service. Debt service is on page 76. Back, go back a little bit. This budget proposes using $109,000 from general fund to debt service fund. We already talked about that the entire payment will be made from a $33,000 collected in prior year's excess funds plus $60,000 in fund balance. So I think that meets the objective that what we were trying to do to slowly work that fund balance down and use it for our budget. Any questions on debt service fund? PEG fund, page 113 of the budget. This budget proposes allocating $36,000 in capital expenditures for upgrades to the city council chambers, audio and video recording and infrastructure necessary for future public access channels. So again, we briefed that as part of the communication strategy. We came back, communication strategy was approved last meeting. What I would envision doing if you support funding this is then coming back to council after October with the specifics, cost and proposals, and laying all that out and getting formal approval. So first step is the budgeting to include it in the budget, and then we would proceed as generally outlined previously. Next slide. So I had a discussion. Was there a slide on personnel that I talked over? Yeah, I forgot what that was. This was kind of meant to be an overview, and so that I'm not talking personnel on all slides, but this budget includes the recommended 3.1% salary increase for staff based upon the compensation study from Steve Whirling. It makes changes to the recommended grade pay grade changes for the accounts payable, human resource clerk, the public works director, the water superintendent, the crew chief, servicemen, and recalculates the mid positions for the fire. Adds 2 police officers, increases the defined contribution to $78, or a 17% increase in health benefits, and adds the employee assistance program. So that's the overview of the entire budget. I'm sure once you get into it and read through it, you're going to have some specific questions.
Yeah, and just as a clarification on the 17% increase, in case people are viewing now and didn't view our prior discussion, that was to normalize out the increases that did not occur in prior years. And basically, we had relatively flat growth in our healthcare costs over a 2-year period of time, a significant bump this year, and if you normalize that out, it's much less than 17% compounded. It's more like 6.5% compounded for our healthcare cost, and that's the reason for the big bump of 17%.
Correct, I understand that, Mayor. Good. So we can have discussion now on any aspects of the budget. I mean, these things get put together at the last minute, and we try to get it out as much as we could. We had a draft version last night. We left somewhere around 9, and then we tweaked it again today. So this is really just presenting it as kind of a read ahead, and then we start the workshops and special meetings associated with that. So again, the next meeting is Tuesday the 9th, Wednesday the 9th, I'm sorry. Wednesday the 9th, next Wednesday. And then that's where council takes a record vote on the proposed tax rate.
Proposed tax rate.
And are we doing a workshop behind that to go over the budget
Yes, sir.
on a department
Yes,
basis?
sir.
So, you know, everybody, if people have things that they've observed at 20,000 feet, you know, we can talk about those right now, but I'm expecting that everybody will go diving into the budget in much greater detail at the next meeting, but does anybody have anything that they'd like to bring to our attention so we can be thinking about that before our next budget meeting? Okay. Bill, thank you, and Laura, for everything that y'all have done. Does anybody have any final questions or comments before we go to item 6? Okay, if there are no questions or comments, do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Michelle to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second from Mike Colomere. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. We are adjourned.